and I am here to show you guys how to make Momofuku, which is actually steamed pork buns with pork belly. What we're going to need for the first part is actually a pound of pork belly. We're going to go ahead and need 1/8 of a cup of sugar, 1/8 of a cup of salt, and as well a teaspoon of 5-spice powder. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to go ahead and get the pork belly. We're going to put it in our bowl. We're going to go ahead and combine all 3 of these into one. Go ahead and shake it up a little. And we're going to go ahead and cover the pork belly with this. Make sure we cover it right on both sides. Let's make sure we cover the whole pork belly with all the spices so we make sure we get all that good flavor in this pork belly. What we're going to do now, we're going to go ahead and put it in our bag, which is going to go ahead and be an airtight seal. If you guys don't have it, you can also put it in Tupperware and just let it sit refrigerated for about an hour. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in the cryo bag and I'll be right back. Alright, after having the pork belly sit in the fridge for about 45 minutes to 50 minutes, you can go ahead and pull it out, depends on the size. We're going to go ahead and cut this open. Okay. We're going to go ahead and, if you have a sheet pan, you can go ahead and put that. Don't put anything underneath, okay? We're going to need a wrap. So all that fat that drops, we're going to actually use later on for the steamed buns. So we're going to go ahead and put that side up. And the oven's actually been preheating for 450 degrees. So it's going to be nice and hot. We're going to go ahead and put this in for 30 minutes. And after 30 minutes, we're going to come out, we're going to baste it, and keep it cooking. Alright, while we have the pork belly in the oven, we're actually going to go ahead and start pickling our cucumbers. So if you actually want to cut them in rounds, you can. Or you can cut them diagonal, which is actually how I'm going to do them as well. If you want to go ahead and peel the whole thing, you're more than welcome to. Or if you want to make it nice and pretty, fancy, different, you can go ahead and skip every other one. So go like that. Alright, get these guys over here. Now what we're going to do, you can go ahead and cut it diagonal, or like I said, in rounds, however you like. Go ahead and do that. This is actually a mandolin. This is just a slicer for any kind of vegetable or fruit, whatever you need. But if you want, if you don't have one at home, you can always use that knife. So go ahead and work on that. Alright, that should be good enough right there. So you can go ahead and put this in any kind of container that you have. I actually have this little metal container over here. I'm going to go ahead and put all the cucumbers in there. Alright, after we have all of our cucumbers sliced in here, we're going to start working on our pickling for the cucumbers. What you have is actually a half a cup of water, you have a 1/4 cup of rice vinegar, we're going to use 3 tablespoons of sugar, we're going to use a teaspoon of salt, and we're going to use a 1/4 teaspoon of sashimi togarashi, which is actually Japanese red chili flakes. We're going to go ahead and take all of our pickling stuff over here to the stove top, and we're actually going to bring everything to a nice boil. After this comes to a nice boil, we're going to go ahead and bring this to the cucumbers and pour it all over. Make sure that all of this gets soaked in so you can get nice and pickled for this steamed bun. Alright, so you can just go ahead and let these sit. We'll go ahead and let them sit either next to the stove, wherever you like, wherever you think is better. Obviously not at reach of children. Pork belly has actually been there about probably 30 minutes now, so we're going to go ahead and take it out, remove the fat, and we're going to pour it back on top and throw it back in the oven for another 30 minutes. So carefully remove the pork belly. Go ahead and put it right over here on the surface. these juices. Pour it onto the tin. So we're gonna go ahead and get the juices and pour it over it. Nice and evenly. Alright, we're gonna throw this back in the oven for another 30 minutes. For this section, we're actually gonna start working on the steam buns. We're gonna have a third of a cup of water at room temperature. We're gonna need a half a teaspoon of active dry yeast. As well, we're gonna need a cup and 2 tablespoons of bread flour. We're gonna need a tablespoon and a half of sugar. We're gonna need 2 teaspoons of non-dry powdered milk. We're gonna need a 1/4 tablespoon of salt, an 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking powder, an 1/8 of a teaspoon of baking soda, and 3 tablespoons of either rendered pork or short meat, as long as it's at room temperature. But since we do not have any rendered pork fat right now, we're gonna actually work with short meat. So what we're gonna do, I like to actually use gloves for this part, just so I don't get all that dough stuck in between my fingers. We're gonna go ahead and put the water in the bowl. We're gonna mix it with the active dry yeast. We gotta do this first and make sure we get a spoon, or if you have a dough whisk, that works as well. We gotta dissolve all these little pieces of yeast that's in here. Alright, so now after we have a nice clean bowl and our dough looks nice and soft, we're going to go ahead and grease up the bowl just a little bit so the dough doesn't stick to the bottom. I'm going to put this right here. Go ahead and smear that around. Alright, now you're going to grab the dough. Go ahead and place it in the middle. We're going to go ahead and get some plastic wrap now. So now we're going to go ahead and wrap this so you guys can tell the difference of the growth of the dough once it's in a proofer. A proofer is actually a little steam oven that we have. Luckily, I have one here, but unfortunately, a lot of us don't have one at home. So the way to improvise with that is you can always go ahead and do the same, put it in the oven, and just have a bowl with some warm water in it, and the oven can be turned off, and you'll see how the yeast in here is going to make this whole dough grow. And how do we know how much it's going to grow? Because we need it to grow double the size. We actually just draw a circle around the size that you see. And then as soon as it's done, you're going to see that it's probably going to be double the size. So I'm going to go ahead and clear this out. I'm going to go ahead and put this right here. We're going to go ahead and take this to the proofer. Alright, so it's been about another 30 minutes that the pork belly has been in the oven. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn down the temperature to 250 degrees and let it sit for another hour and 15 minutes so it's nice and tender and it's like a pillow. Now we gotta wait another hour and 15 minutes. Alright, so the pork belly has been in the oven for about 2 hours and 15 minutes approximately. So we're going to go ahead and remove it, and for you to actually be able to cut better, it's best if you put it in the freezer for a little bit. And then as soon as you're ready to go ahead and cut it, we'll go ahead and bring it out, we'll go ahead, slice it up, and then we'll just go ahead and put it on our skillet so we can go ahead and get it nice and golden on the outsides and be ready for these steamed buns. Alright. I know it looks a little dark, but trust me, it's amazing. Nice and pillowy. Alright. I'm just going to go ahead and let this sit in the freezer for a good maybe 20-30 minutes so it's nice and frozen, and then so we can go ahead and slice it. Now we're going to go ahead and get the pork belly, put it on the side. So if you go ahead and take that to the freezer, we're going to actually save this fat that we have here. Oops. Just like we did earlier. I'm going to go ahead and save this for the buns. Alright. We'll go ahead and put this in, and then we'll go ahead and continue with the steamed buns. Alright. Alright, so after the dough has actually doubled its size, we're gonna go ahead and take this out. We're gonna degas it. So pretty much what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and punch down with our fingers. Just like that. And what we're gonna do, we're gonna go ahead and flour the surface with bread flour, which is what was in the dough as well. So we're gonna go ahead and throw that like that. Alright. We actually have to divide this into pieces of 25 grams, which is equivalent to about an ounce. So for that, it's best if you get a scale. Oops. Alright. So we're gonna go ahead and cut this. Alright, so we're gonna go ahead and let these just go ahead and rest. We're gonna cover them up. 6, that's 8, that's 10. We're making 11 of these bad boys. So we'll go ahead and have these rest for a little bit, probably about 30 minutes, preferably obviously covered. So you can go ahead and put anything over it. Let's go ahead and let them rest for a good 30 minutes, okay? And then after 30 minutes, we're gonna go ahead and roll these out. So while the buns were actually resting, I cut up little squares of parchment paper. You know, this is probably like a 2.5 or 3 inch by 3 inch. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna flatten out the dough with our hand. We're gonna get a little rolling pin. So we're gonna go ahead and roll them out into like little oval shapes. It's up to you what size you want them. Preferably, I'm gonna go a little bit bigger because they should grow just a tad bit, not too much. Remember, we're trying to fit a little piece of pork bun in here with some cucumbers as well. It's also optional if you want to add some chopped scallions in here. I think this is about right for me. I personally like this size. You can go ahead and grab the reserved pork fat that we had from earlier, either with a brush or anything that you can go ahead and put it, even with your own fingers. Just go ahead and put that in the inside part. And what we're going to do is we're going to fold these in half. Make sure that they're kind of same shape on both sides. We're going to get a little piece of the parchment and we're going to go ahead and lay it on top. That's all we got to do. Now we're going to have to do that to all of these over here, and then we're going to let them sit for another 30 minutes before we put them to steam. Alright, so I already rolled out all 11 little pieces of dough. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cover it again. I have a bigger one this time. We're just going to go ahead and let this rest for another 30 minutes before we steam them for 10 minutes, okay? So I'll see you guys back in 30 minutes. So we've been having these again for resting for 30 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and put them in the steamer, which is actually a double boiler that we have over here. It's just a hotel pan with a perforated hotel pan on top, just filled up with water so you can go ahead and steam up the buns nice. So I'm going to go ahead and just do a couple of these. We're going to go ahead and cover these up with tin foil. Well, as you guys can see, I'm in a different kitchen now. I had to come home because I actually got kicked out of school right now, which was where I was doing my project. But I'm okay. I'm going to go ahead and finish it over here with you guys. I brought the pork belly back. It's still chilled, but we're still going to have to warm it up for serving. So I have sliced up this pork belly earlier. I did it by strips. They are obviously a little bit too long for our buns that we have. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to cut this in half. Okay. So you see the good pieces that we have here. What I have over here is I've had a little skillet warming up, so I can go ahead and just give these a little bit of browning on both sides. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and grab it with these because that's pretty hot over here. So we're just going to go ahead and let these get nice and pretty on each side. And then we'll go ahead and set this up so you guys can go ahead and see. Alright, so I just went ahead and seared these pieces of pork belly to give it a nice little golden brownish color. And right here I have the steamed buns from earlier. They're still warm. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab each one. Since we put a little bit of the oil in between, it's actually going to let it separate. So what we do is we're going to get the brush. We're going to get a little bit of hoisin sauce. And we're just going to go ahead and put some of this hoisin sauce right on top. Good amount. And then from there we're going to go ahead and grab some of those cucumbers that we made earlier. You go ahead and put maybe 3 or 4. That's 3. And that's 4. And now we're going to go ahead and get a little piece of this pork belly and we're going to go ahead and put that down there. So now we're going to go ahead and repeat that with the rest of the ones that we have here. And then I'll go ahead and show you what you guys can serve it with. Alright, so these are actually the pork belly steamed buns for you. You go ahead, just to make them look a little pretty, go ahead and add some green onions on top. If you want, you can add some in the middle as well. It's up to you how much you like green onions. And then as well, for whoever likes sriracha, we could go ahead and add some of that. I'm actually going to go ahead and take a bite of this one and let you guys know what I think of them. Very good. Salty, sweet, it's got a little bit of acidity. Very, very yummy. Definitely something that the family could like, especially kids. So I hope you guys enjoyed this time with me. I hope it was very useful to you guys. And I hope you guys enjoy cooking as much as I do. Have a good one.